Thank you for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here indeed for the second time speaking at the TRI Academy. And I'll start with some background because I'm here today to present a new nonprofit called TinnitusQuest. But those of you who know me will know me from a different nonprofit called TinnitusHub. So I just want to explain the background there. I've been co-managing TinnitusHub for 6-7 years together with Marku and a few others. And Marku started TinnitusTalk, the forum, 14 years ago. So there's a long history there, and we've been doing this in our spare time, mostly as volunteers next to our day jobs. And TinnitusHub has always focused on, it's a global organization. It doesn't belong to any specific region or country. It's global, it's online, it's about connecting patients through the TinnitusTalk forum, which indeed probably is the largest tinnitus discussion and support forum on the internet. But we've also been producing the TinnitusTalk podcast to kind of educate people mostly about the research that's going on, because we identified that early on as a gap. Like, tinnitus sufferers really want to know more about the research, and there wasn't much communication on that. We've been involved in research projects as well, and we've co-authored, I think, about 10 or 12 academic papers based on survey data that we collected or based on analysis of the TinnitusTalk forum. So we've done all these things, but what we've never done is directly fund research, right? And the one or two times that we tried to help a researcher raise funds through crowdfunding, it turned out to be extremely difficult. It's just not, I know it's a cliche, but it's just not a sexy condition that people like to give money to. It's not like, helping orphans or, people dying from cancer or all these things, which are obviously very important, but we believe tinnitus is also very important. But we just never saw ourselves as being in the position of actually being able to directly fund research. But that changed early this year when we were approached by Sven Kohlmann, who is a German entrepreneur and philanthropist who has suffered from tinnitus for a long time. And he had been funding research like directly on a one-on-one basis, right? He had been funding several tinnitus research projects, but he felt, I want to do this in a more structural and organized way, right? So I want to set up a new organization where we can get other people also on board who are willing to donate money. So both like high net worth individuals, likely those who suffer from tinnitus themselves, as well as crowdfunding, right? But I want to do that in an organized way. And, I want to fund research into a cure. And we really want to involve the patients in the whole thing. Patients should have like a majority vote on the board. We want to do a lot of public communication through social media, etc. Really bring the patient and researchers closer together. And all of that was a music to our ears, because that's what we've been wanting to do or been trying to do for many years. But of course, it changes the game when you also have like money to give out. So we've just launched officially, only we're in existence since July as a nonprofit in Germany. We're establishing ourselves in other countries as well. So why TinnitusQuest? Well, as you know, tinnitus is a serious problem for about 1% to 2% of the population. Antonio talked extensively about this particular group for whom there isn't sufficient care. There aren't great solutions. We believe the existing therapies aren't sufficient. They don't work for everyone, or they don't work long term, or they don't work consistently. People might have all kinds of other problems or reasons for why this isn't sufficient. There's not much, let's say, exploratory research happening, meaning really trying out new approaches to treatment, testing out new and different, let's say, out-of-the-box approaches, which has to do also a lot with the funding, right? So we're not like blaming the researchers for that, but that is the reality. There's a lot of barriers between the patients, the researchers, and the public. This is probably the case in many areas of health research, but there are examples of where, this connection has been fostered much more closely, and that's what we want to achieve as well. And just a general lack of communication on research progress. So these are all reasons why we felt there was a need for an organization like TinnitusQuest. And our vision is pretty simple and also very ambitious, which is to silence tinnitus. So how do we purport to achieve this vision? Well, we'll work with, as I mentioned, seed funding and crowdfunding. We've been pretty successful already, especially considering that we only existed for a short time. We've raised about 200,000 from high net worth people. We actually have one high net worth person who has pledged 1 million. For that, we first need to get, because he's based in the Netherlands, we need to get our tax deductible status in the Netherlands, and then hopefully that donation will come through. So that's going well. The crowdfunding is also going, considering, like I mentioned, how hard it is to crowdfund for a condition like tinnitus. That has been going pretty well too. In the first 6 weeks, we raised about 10,000 just from online smaller donations. And I think part of the reason for that is because we've invested so much in like doing communication, like building a really great website, doing social media, organizing public events that like anyone can attend. We've already organized 3 Q&As with researchers that were open for anyone to attend. And so I think that's one of the reasons that we have been relatively successful so far with crowdfunding, but we really need to amp it up still much more. Then I think the second major pillar of supporting our vision to silence tinnitus is involving the patient directly in the research. So we have, for instance, a patient advisory board. Actually, our executive board consists of a majority patients, so 3 patients and 2 researchers. And we want to make sure that once we start funding research projects, we're not there yet, that will happen next year, but that each project that we fund reports on a quarterly basis about the progress. And progress can also mean, by the way, failure, right? If we're testing out new like experimental approaches, well, we have to be honest, like a lot of them are going to fail. That's we also put literally on our website that it's high risk, high gain research that we're going to be funding. So we're expecting things also to fail, but we think it's also important to learn from failures and to also communicate publicly about, okay, this thing didn't work, but we learned from it this and this and this, which can help us move forward towards a cure. And then the third pillar is really, the direct funding of new research projects. And we want to fund what we call agile exploratory research. We put a lot of thought into like, how do we actually, what specific type of research do we want to focus on? Do we want to fund? Because there's so much. And if you look at, and we also looked at the existing organizations like ATA and Hearing Health Foundation and what they're funding and trying to be complementary to that. So really finding what our niche is and where we feel we can have the most impact. So if we looked at, okay, what are the types of research that can help us progress towards a cure? It's first of all, finding an objective measure, super important. And I think Antonia's research also contributes to that. It would help to be able to objectively assess the success of new treatments, and therefore also it would make it much more appealing for commercial parties like big healthcare companies or so to invest in finding cures for tinnitus. So very important, but not our cup of tea, let's say. Then secondly, you have the more basic fundamental research to understand the mechanisms of tinnitus. Again, very, very important, but also it's very big and these studies can take very long and be very expensive. Therefore, we decided to focus on the third important stream of research that can lead us towards a cure, which is actually testing out new experimental treatments and doing this sort of in an agile proof of concept way. So not the big RCTs. Those are important when you want to commercialize something, but you're really it's very expensive and you're locking yourself into a specific protocol that you're testing. So really this comes before that. It's more quickly testing out new things to get a proof of concept to see what might work, right? So we wanted to be very specific, have a very specific focus like that. And also very importantly, we want to entice and encourage young researchers to work on tinnitus and to apply for grants with TinnitusQuest. And that's also definitely a call to action I want to share here today is, to if you are a young researcher to contact us to get other young researchers involved. I think it's so important for making progress in this area. So who's involved? Well, you can see the names on the website, so tinnitusquest.com under About Us. We have an executive board, which, like I mentioned, consists of 3 patients, which is myself, Sven, the initiator, and Marco, my colleague from TinnitusHub, and then 2 researchers, whom you see also on the photo here, Dirk de Ridder and Hamid Jalilian. And then we have a scientific board. We're actually going to rename it Scientific Advisory Committee, I think. Antonio is actually also on it, and Bertolt Langgoed, whom you see in the photo. So it consists of 7 researchers who will be advising us on the structure of the grants program and the framework and things like that. And a patient board that we're still recruiting for. We want really to have the patient voice strongly represented, and we want them to give input into where the money goes, basically. But we want not just any patients on board. They have to have like some basic understanding of tinnitus research and research methods and things like that. Otherwise, it would be too challenging for them to really give meaningful input. So we're still recruiting for that. Well, what makes us unique? I mean, there are other organizations out there focusing on tinnitus, but we would be, or are now, I believe, the only nonprofit purely focused on finding a cure for tinnitus through funding research. We do have some of the top researchers in the field on board. We are patient-driven. We already have donations and commitments, like I mentioned, the 1 million pledge from several high net worth individuals. And I think we're banking heavily we're investing a lot of time and energy in finding more of such individuals. We're committed to complete transparency on progress and failures and doing lots of public communication. And of course, we're also supported by the existing nonprofit that I'm part of, TinnitusHub, and the support forum TinnitusTalk, which already gives us a wide audience to start with. So we're not like starting from scratch in that regard. Well, this is already my final slide because I didn't want to make it too long, but I would highly encourage you to go to tinnitusquest.com to learn more. In particular, check out some of our public events. We have coming up on 13 November, we're organizing an event called Young Researchers Unleashed, where we are asking young researchers to join us to make their elevator pitch for how they would silence tinnitus if they had the funding. And we're really looking for like fresh, new, out-of-the-box ideas. A few people are registered, including Robin, maybe a few others who are on this call, but we really want more. Like I said, we're really actively looking for those young researchers. So if you're interested or anyone else is interested, please email us at info@tinnitusquest.com, and I will share the registration link with you. We didn't put the registration links publicly on the website because we did that in the beginning, and then all kinds of people were registering who turned out not to be researchers because they didn't understand the concept. So that's why we didn't put the registration link on the website. But if you just email us, we will send it to you. We're also going to be organizing a conference in Germany in early February next year. This, I think, will be a very interesting event because it will be very different from the traditional academic conference, where it's more about people presenting the results of their work. It's very like a one-way sharing of information. This will really be more like a brainstorm event with working sessions to brainstorm on new solutions. And we'll be reaching out soon to invite people to join us there. And we hope to kick off the actual grants program sometime in early 2025. We still have some work to do, obviously, to set some rules and regulations around the grants. But one thing we already know is that we don't want to make the admin burden too high for researchers to apply. We don't want you to have to fill in endless forms or anything, or write 20-page proposals. What we'll probably ask is initially just give us a pitch. So it's more like a business-like approach. Pitch us, sell us your idea. And then, of course, we still have to do due diligence and gather other information from you and stuff like that, where we're really trying to make it like a low barrier to entry in that regard. So yeah, we hope to hear from you, and don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you want to learn more. I will stop there, and I think we're also almost out of time. So